Hello, it's Dwayne here from your favorite podcast, Men Know Nothing. As you can see, we are about to provide you with an absolutely fantastic bonus episode with the Yogi therapist. So we actually recorded an episode with her a couple of months ago. So if you haven't listened to that, please do go back and listen because it's absolutely fantastic. And the reason why we actually do have this bonus episode is because we ended up hitting record with the intention of starting the episode, but we ended up talking about something completely different, and we just thought, you know what, let's just keep this recording, and then we'll just do the episode straight after. So what you're about to get is unfiltered, unedited, extra content from us guys. So as always, please like, subscribe, and share all our content, and enjoy. Thank you.
When you initially meet someone in your profession, can you put a read on them? Like within minutes, within a few questions? Like, is there like, obviously you're a psychotherapist, but like, I work in sales. So, there are certain things that I would be able to pick up on people in terms of like their conversation, their body language, how comfortable they are. So I just wonder if like,
you can do that?
Yeah, if you do that as well. Or if you try not to, but really you do.
I mean, I think the thing is we're always watching people and we're always trying to analyze and understand and put things in context. You definitely can, but I'm also always surprised by people. Once the first impression is there, but then when you kind of get a little bit deeper, there's always more to it. And it's always complex because behavior it can present very differently in different people. So yes, but I try not to is the answer.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. It's also not to sound like a yogi. Oh, you've already been kicked out, but a big part of it is energy as well. And I don't mean energy in some kind of like metaphysical sense. I mean energy in you can see how people feel about life and themselves by the way that they hold themselves, by the way that they articulate, the way that they use their hands, the way that they look when they speak, and so all that kind of stuff you start to piece together.
Fair.
Yeah. But you would be the same in sales.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly watching and assessing and trying on things and seeing how it lands. If you said to me, hey, here's this price, and I go, or even more subtle than that, I go, okay, immediately you'd be looking for how did that land on her?
Yeah.
So it's similar.
I wonder what your reading of me will be pre this podcast, post this podcast.
But you know what's so funny? I was listening to the lady that you had before, the
Anita.
Yeah. And you were saying that a lot. You were like, oh, are you reading me? Like, I feel so conscious that you're watching me.
Oh, was
I? Yeah, you said it numerous times.
It's because I'm curious, that's why. It's because I'm always curious of like being with someone who works in that industry to be like, what's your read?
Yeah.
Like, what can you pick up? I'm always just very curious. If someone's like, oh, I can tell that you have tendencies to this, or you've got like an avoidant tendency, or there must be some trauma somewhere to do with something.
Scumbag.
I'm just so...
He's like, is it that
Is it obvious I'm a scumbag?
I used to take a lot of pleasure in trying to like understand and read people.
Yeah.
And if someone does this for a living, not like does it for a living, but I'm always curious, what can you pick up from my body language, how I speak, the things I speak of? I'm just always curious.
Do you know what? It takes time. And whenever I hear people say this, kind of like gets under my skin. Whenever anyone says to me, I'm a really good read on people, immediately I know they are not a good read on people.
Yeah, you're trying too hard.
You're trying too hard, but also I don't think you're appreciating how intricate and complex people are. And if you think that you can kind of suss someone out from a statement, from an outfit, from a something, immediately I think you're probably creating a 2D perception of someone and not giving space for all the complexity to come out. It takes time to really, it takes time for even people to show up fully.
Sure.
I think in my therapy sessions, I don't think I have a proper therapy session till about the 5th or the 6th session. It takes time for people to just trust me, to know that when they say something to me, I care and I'm going to listen properly, and that their vulnerability is safe with me.
That's fact, because I remember when I went to my first therapy session about 2 years ago, after my first session, my therapist thought like I was great. She's like, you seem fine, like you've got a good handle and everything, because I went in very much to say, this is what I've learned over the last 2 years, reading, listening to podcasts, and I've pretty much talked. And at the end of it, she kind of said, I feel like you've got a pretty good handle on it. of what you were talking about, I'm like, just you wait.
Just wait.
There's
Just,
some shit. Yeah.
just wait until it all comes out.
After our third session, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to come back for a while, aren't I? And she was like, yeah, you gotta come back.
But do you know what? It really depends on what kind of therapist you're seeing. And I'm not here at all to I don't know, speak crap or like kind of judge different ways that therapists work. But, you know, if you're working with a psychologist and they're staying very cognitive, behavioral, it can tend to be a little surfacey. And I know that's contentious and there's going to be like psychologists who say that's not true. But I think, you know, I often have clients who come in and they've read all the books, right? They've read the, you know, what is it? The
attachment styles.
Well, they know. Yeah, they can tell me their attachment style. They can all that stuff, and they've got all this language. But whether they can actually apply that is a totally different thing. And oftentimes, having all of this intellectual knowledge presents the facade of self-awareness. But there are people who are deeply self-aware and live so intentionally and passionately without having ever read a book.
Well, what we said was the difference between being self-aware and actually doing the self-development aspect of it. It's like knowing all the shit that you've done in the past, but if you're not willing to actually change those aspects of you that made you that kind of person, then what's the point of reading the books?
Also, there are so many people where it's like, you know, they read loads but take no action. It's like, well, that means you've got nothing to like contextualize it against. You really can't put it into practice.
Yeah.
So Esther Perel talks about it a lot as well. That's where I got it from a couple of years ago, where she talked about people have this perception that you go off and you work on yourself, you go to therapy and you create this little cute little box of yourself of being an amazing person. But she said that's not how it works. You need to be in relationships in order to actually figure out how far you've come, how far you need to go, and because obviously people who you're with are somewhat of a reflection of who you are as a person. So she is completely against the fact that people should go off and become this perfect version of themselves, but never actually get into these relationships to actually see who they really are.
And Dwayne has read 47 self-help books in the past 6 months.
But the thing is, the self is a practice, right? We never arrive at who we are. It is this thing that gets acted out continuously, and it changes depending on the context. It changes with time. It changes with what's going on in society. So, yeah, the idea that we arrive is just a total kind of, come here, baby, a total misunderstanding of what it means to be human.
I was watching Alex Hormozy. Love this guy. He was saying something quite similar. He was like... Alex Hormozy. You don't know Alex Hormozy. You don't know Alex Hormozy.
He's a business sales guy.
Yeah, he's a very good talker. He's a very good talker, and he's like, you don't win at fitness, you don't win at marriage. He's like, you get in shape and then you stay in shape. You don't win at marriage, but the goal is to stay married. So the same thing. You don't win at becoming the best person. You just continuously develop, and that's just life. And that's like, as long as you're in the game, well, then you're winning.
Absolutely. Being in the arena. I have a question for you guys.
Oh God, here we go.
What is your definition of being a well-developed person? What does that look like in your understanding? If we were to arrive at the ideal state of being, what does that look like?
What do you mean? What? Can you ask the question again, please?
Okay. So we're talking about, you know, doing the work and continuously trying to achieve an ideal sense of self. Yeah? What does that look like in your understanding?
Fully understanding the reason behind your actions and the intentions you have.
So awareness.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think that is a massive part of it, Because I think it gives you aim and direction. I think it gives you, the aim and direction. So when you do have a goal or you do have a purpose, you understand why you're taking those actions. And without the relevant inputs, you can't get the output that you're looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What about you?
I think for me, I think for me, a version of myself would be someone who's willing to, has no issue with being confrontational when I feel like my boundaries and my needs and wants aren't being met. Because for years I would be the kind of person that if someone kind of bothered me, I just brush it off. Yeah. Like, oh, that's fine, don't care. And I've done that throughout like high school. If one of my friends like got with the girl that I've been chasing for months and now he started dating her and became a girl, I would kind of just shrugged it off and just let it be. The best version of me is to not allow the part of me who doesn't want to be confrontational to be confrontational.
I like that.
to a healthy degree. If someone pisses me off or pushes my boundaries or doesn't respect me or my time, I am now wanting to just say it without the fear of them being upset, because I should be allowed to voice my opinions, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yourself?
I'm here. You're like, I'm already here.
Is what you're going to say make our
Absolutely
answers
not.
look like absolute shit?
No. Do you know what? I love your answer, and I love your answer too. I love that journey for you. But your answer is kind of bang on to what I always tell people. Like, I remember my supervisor said to me, you know, what is the aim of therapy for you? Like, why are people here? What is it that you're trying to get them to achieve or be? And a lot of people will say, happy, right? I want to be happier in my life. And I think happiness is a really beautiful place to visit, but it's a really unrealistic expectation to think that that's where we can live.
Yeah.
And I think the goal of therapy is awareness.
Yeah.
Because when we're aware, we're empowered. Because the reality is, most of the time we're acting unconsciously. We're acting or we're reacting to things that are familiar, things that are underlying, things that are unconscious. And I think when we have that awareness of why we are the way we are, why certain things piss us off, the stories that we tell ourselves, we then start to move into a place where we can consciously choose how we show up in situations. That's not going to make you happy.
No, it's not.
You know, and I think like what you were saying is, I'm sure to a degree, keeping the peace and letting shit fly gave you a sense of peace, you know, because you didn't have to be confrontational. I mean, ultimately, it probably made you resentful, you know, but to go to therapy and to do the work is to voluntarily step into discomfort over and over and over again. And it gets easier because you're better at it, but it's always hard.
Yes.
But I always say this to people, it's all hard.
It's all hard. I
It
think
wouldn't be
all
worth
hard.
it if it was easy.
I think it gets to a point that it can be quite, I don't know, after a while when you understand the process a bit more, I think it gets quite fun because it almost makes you
amen.
like, you challenge your existing beliefs. You're like, I never thought about that before. That's a really cool way to like see that aspect of me or life or this or that. I'm like, that's cool. That's awesome.
You've clearly been to therapy though.
I have. I've spent a lot of time, to be honest, I've spent a lot of time with myself, with really great friends, and just speaking to them.
Beautiful.
I kind of went to therapy as like
like an extra bit on the side.
it was like an extra. I always wanted
Yeah.
to go to therapy in my older age, and I was like, I just want to see if they're going to tell me anything I haven't already thought of myself. And I went, and like, she was basically like, it sounds like you've done a lot of the work. And I was like, and I did about 10, 12 sessions, and I was like, I just want to do this to see if maybe like I'm wrong or if I'm like in such a delusional disbelief.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like why I went, because I'm like, I just want to see if you'll tell me something that I haven't figured out yet. So I basically went and told them everything about my life, and I was like, cool, pick it apart.
Yeah.
Tell me like what's wrong, what's broken. This is why I think it's fixed. This is why I think it doesn't work. And that was kind of like what I got out of therapy. It was kind of like, okay, so I am on the right track basically, which was nice.
I think
I feel like there's plenty more that you can unpack, though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure as the years go on, there will be.
Think of stuff in my head. I'm like, I have a few points you could probably talk about.
yeah, Dwayne's just at the back of your session being like, that's a lie.
So
Ask him about this. Ask him about this. He hasn't
This-
talked about that in 12 sessions.
this will be in the extra content of Men Know Nothing.
Yeah. We haven't even started the
Oh
actual
yeah,
episode
we
yet.
have. Can we introduce? We'll do an introduction.
but-
Wait, can I just say one thing to that though?
yeah, for sure.
Not to blow smoke up your ass.
Okay,
But-
please do.
You know, again, what's the goal of therapy? I want someone to be free of me. You know,
Yeah.
I refuse to give advice because that starts to foster codependency, right? I want someone to be fully empowered, that they can have exactly what you have, which is a deeply curious sense of self. Who am I? Why did I do that? And I think the extra part to that is you can do that with curiosity and compassion.
Yeah,
Not like, why the fuck am I like this? It's, why did I do that?
Yeah.
And
Or
even
why
just
do I feel this way?
that change in tone is so big.
Mm.
To be able to shift from blame and hatred and I'm not good enough, which is, you know, where a lot of people live, to like, oh, I can ask this question and it needn't be inherently
bad.
bad.
Yeah,
and then it gets to the point which you're clearly at, which is like, this is fun. Fuck, I didn't know this about myself. This terrible kind of, you know, underlying unconscious belief I had that's ruining my life. Interesting.
20-year-old gaslighting
even-
me would have never seen this conversation happening.
But even in a version where it's like you figure this stuff out and you always have that compassion for yourself because you totally understand, holy shit, I'm like this because of this experience I had when I was 8 years old. I remember that feeling and feeling this way. And it obviously, because I think one of the biggest things that I learned when I started reading the books and going to therapy is how much our childhood have an effect on us today. And I guess anyone who's doing the self-awareness stuff now realizes it, and it feels like common knowledge. But when I started reading, so the first book I read was Attached after I came out of my relationship like 2 years ago. And they were talking about attachment theories and how your attachment style actually massively is dependent on how you were brought up and your primary caregiver and all that. And as I was reading through it, I was looking and thinking, holy shit, this is why I felt anxious in the past relationships, because this has happened. And then when I was like, oh, but I'm a little bit avoidant as well. And then I pinpointed the point in which I became avoidant, and it was in 2015.
That's
but
fucking
previous
awesome.
to that, I was always an anxious attachment style. And then that relationship after that turned me avoidant, and then I haven't felt anxious in a relationship in like 7 years.
I think the fact that you can see that as well, it's like, fuck.
It was mad. It was like a flip of a switch.
You see it from such like an outside perspective. You're just like, oh wow, okay.
Because
I see like how this game is playing out.
That relationship, I ended up being anxious towards the end because of just how it played out. And then after that, I started looking back. It's like, fuck, like when I dated her, when I was in a relationship with her, like there wasn't any point in that relationship where I felt like my emotions and my heart could be broken, because I never actually allowed myself to get to that point where it could be broken. So yeah, if I broke up with him, which I did, I was upset, but I wasn't like falling apart at the seams, and my life wasn't falling apart because I never actually allowed myself the grace and the love that I deserve to actually let them love me and to receive the love. And then now I've realized that, I'm like, fuck, maybe that's been the issue why none of my past situationships and relationships work, because I've just been so cold to the idea of potentially being hurt again.
Can I just say, I'm so grateful that these conversations are being had by men at your age. This is so refreshing.
You're welcome, ladies.
This is ruining the moment.
I take it back. No, I mean, particularly among men who are so deeply self-aware, so compassionate, and emotionally intelligent. It is so important, especially because men really, have such an impact on how society is shaped. With fathering, with being a husband, with how they show up in the world. So I'm so relieved, and I'm so impressed.
Thanks.
I'm so impressed.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this episode.
I know I am. I think just before we introduce the pod, I was going to say
we'll end this recording. We'll just start over again.
Will this be? Oh mate, this is.
He wants that part in.
This will be extra
I really like this. Well, I was going to say, I think a really powerful thing, and that I've learned over time, and what I find I get into a lot of conversations with my friends whenever they tell me they're in a certain situation. Yeah. I'm always, the most powerful thing I've learned over time is just asking why. But not asking why that situation, but why do you feel like that? Why? And they're like, I feel like this because of this. I'm like, why? Yeah. And it's just, they're like, you start getting to the very core of where it's coming from, and they realize it's nothing to do with what's happening externally. But it's like, fuck, I reacted like this because of this. And you only ask that. You only find that out by asking why. And I just love that so much.
It's that Socratic questioning.
Yeah.
Is you just and you plant a seed.
Yeah.
And it's a really loving, why is that? And it's a curious invitation to really explore what's going on.
They never ask that. So many people, you'd be surprised how they're like, no one's ever asked me that before.
Really?
People are just reactive towards situations. Like, here's a situation, let's fix it, instead of being like, yeah, but where's that situation come from? And I'm just like, I was having chats with my friends back home when I went to the UK, and so many of them were like, no one's ever asked me this. No one's ever taken the time to just be like, why am I feeling shit about this?
How old are you guys?
30.
Where do you find that most of your friends are at in terms of this kind of
do you mean their age?
Well, no, you've got
their
your
level
friends.
of self-awareness.
Yeah. I mean, birds of a feather flock together, but really?
Yeah.
I'd say because they're just, I feel that there are a lot of people that do lack the ability to do that because they aren't.
They haven't put in the
you aren't
position
hanging
where they
around with
have
the kind
to.
of you're
don't
not hanging
think.
around with the kind of people that like also what's the word? Sorry, you're not hanging out with the kind of people that like question that in you. Like, and also it comes down to like maybe your friends just don't care enough to be
to ask
inquisitive
the
enough.
question,
Like
yeah.
you have to have inquisitive friends. If you don't have inquisitive friends, well then you never. I think real friendship is built on those moments of like why. Why is that happening?
Yeah.
Because that's a vulnerability, and that's where real friendships are born, and like vulnerability and
For
stuff
the
like
most
that.
part, though, I
Otherwise, it's
think
just getting on the piss and just like
Yeah.
I think most men, for the most part, aren't willing to open up to their friends as well. It's like you literally have to force it out of them. And if, God forbid, you end up having a conversation that's not about drinking beers in the UFC,
yeah,
whoa, what are you
That
doing?
sounds too boring. And
Just
obviously
like, oh
I
my
would say
God.
that, but that just sounds...
yeah.
Yeah,
Like I have male clients who start to do this work and then they become very lonely. And they become lonely because the conversations are no longer satisfying.
no
Yeah.
Because they realize there's actually no depth.
facts.
And then they have to go out and like kind of find a new...
But that's the thing, though. A lot of times with men, you'd find when men hang out, they always... So girls would go and hang out. They'll go to someone's house, they'll bring a bottle of wine, they'll sit around a table and they'll talk. Men don't do that. Men will go and hang out in a pub where they can drink and watch
Facing something.
and watching a sport. So you're all like...
Yeah.
So the only time you actually talk to your mates when you go to these pubs to watch sport is like in between rounds or at half time. And then I'm not going to sit and talk to you about anything meaningful whenever we've got 30 seconds. Like,
Yeah.
how's work, mate? It's the same as it was the last time we spoke.
That's good.
Oh, the fight's back
The missus
on.
is good. Yeah.
Do you know
missus
what-
is
do you know
good.
what's
Start talking again in 3
Interesting.
minutes.
When you look at evolutionary psychology, you might know this. I'm sure you got everything I say is probably not going to be new to you guys.
There's
No,
definitely
I'm sure
loads
there's
you
going to be
probably
stuff.
got.
Like,
But okay, evolutionarily, women would sit around, hunter-gatherer, talk inward, right? It was a circle. Like you said, they sit around a table and everyone's connecting. Men connected when they were hunting, so everyone is in a line facing forward.
True.
And so that was their bonding time of like, we have a shared task together. That is what
yeah, that's fair.
that's what we're focusing on and connecting with. It's interesting when I have male clients. If you're watching, I'm gonna reveal that. I actually don't face them.
What do you mean? You
No.
face the
I
other
face
way?
subtly, right? I'm not like back to back. But with women, I can sit straight on, right? It's not intimidating. If
Yeah.
I sit straight on with a man, immediately they start doing.
Do they freeze up slightly?
They get really uncomfortable, and so I turn our chairs away.
That's really interesting.
As
I
in,
don't know.
like, when you said aware, what are we
It's
talking
like
about?
an, I'm guessing like
Like
just
an
like an
angle?
L, like
Like an
if
angle
we're sitting
kind of
like an L
thing?
Yeah.
shaped, like
Yeah, kind of like this. So he's
like
my
here.
knees are facing not that much. Like it would be like, yeah, it would kind of be like this.
Kind of like this, okay.
Yeah, like we're
I
talking
would do
side to
that.
side.
I would do that on dates though. So on like a
Okay.
first date, I would do
Like
that
in an
because
L
I find
shape?
if you sit opposite, it's like an interview.
Yeah.
And so I would always think, you want to sit at an angle like this, like an L-shaped table or
Yeah,
something
I
like
would
that.
if I
So
could
it's not
fit
for
you
like
an option.
so it's not
You're
like so
such a
intense and stuff.
salesperson.
I am.
Yeah.
There's
He's-
always
he's,
a reason.
he's trying to manipulate
Yeah,
as soon as
also
he
it's
walks
easier
through
to build the
door.
like physical escalation and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
The
yeah.
treatment hands.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
So
Yeah.
I would always think that because it's like it's just a bit nicer and it's like it's a bit softer and it's not like an interview and it's easier because then you both have like an external reference point as well.
Do you know what else is really interesting? Oh, once you hear this, you can't unknow it. So
Here we go.
we have mirror neurons in our brain.
You have what? Sorry.
Mirror neurons.
Okay.
And it's a part of our brain that helps us to look at our situation, look at the person in front of us and mirror back. Because mirroring, you would know this, Mr. Salesman, creates closeness.
Mhm.
And it's totally unconscious. And they did these amazing studies where they put people together in a room like this and they would take a number of measures about their physiology. So they would look at their heart rate and they would look at how much they were sweating.
I think I've seen this
Yeah,
before.
you would know this. And what they found is if they really connected, right, if the conversation was good quality, if there was eye contact, if there were similarities, their heartbeat would start to sink and they would start to sweat at the same rate.
Wow.
And that's how deeply wired we are for connection, because we want to we want to connect with the person that's in front of us. And so this is what I find with mirror neurons is you won't even realize you're doing it, but you will start to mirror back what people are doing.
I noticed that
The
all
amount of
time.
times that a client will be sitting there, like this, and then if I check in, because I'm looking at her, I'm like, oh, she looks blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, shit, I'm doing it too. You just start to do it.
Yeah. I
You'll
noticed that
start
on like the London Underground. When I lived in London, and you'd sit like on the train, I'd be like, I just look down the carriageway, and I'm like, so many
Everyone's
people
in,
are just
like,
mirrored.
sat in the same
So
area.
it's so funny. It's
Yeah.
just, and like the moment one person moves, suddenly the other person moves. Like, and I'm just like, fuck, that's so
My legs
crazy.
will be crossed this way, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh god, I just feel the desire to move, and I realize like 5 seconds before they had just
Swapped
done
over as
that.
well.
It's so funny.
and it's just my body's discomfort with being out of sync with the person in front of me.
Fair.
Okay, well, shall we start the episode?